The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Open Door in the Arts. My name is Barbara Richer, and I'll be your host today as we travel around the region, opening those doors on the arts that enrich our lives so much. I have a very special door to open today, and I'm so excited about it. We are going to meet a gentleman who is going to help us rediscover and redefine what we mean by the word arts, and he'll do it in a very special way. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Corey Aldridge, who is the founder, a creative force by all means, and the producer behind Electric City Couture, a new look at the arts. So Corey, please begin by telling us a little bit about the history of this very special show.
Well, actually, Electric City Couture started out as more of an arts initiative. I wasn't a part of the initial planning. It was an initiative for an art night activity at Proctors Theater in Schenectady.
Okay.
So a friend of mine was a designer in the show, a very creative woman named Katie Prey, and I was going to help her in the back room of the show. Mm-hmm. When I got there, Richard Loveridge, the marketing director then of Proctors Theater, said the show was looking like it was going to be very popular, but they had nobody to stage manage. He handed me the headphones and asked me if I could run the lighting and the sound crew and make the show happen.
Oh my gosh.
So thankfully I have a lot of event experience, so we got through it. It was a smashing success, and we immediately began planning the next year, and it took off from there.
And exactly what kind of show are we talking about when we're talking about this show and the concept of it?
Well, the first show was really an artistic expression of fashion, so it involved a lot of people who were doing very creative things with, like, garbage bags as fashion, for example. So it was a very interpretive abstraction of what fashion could be. But I quickly saw that we could actually move this into a higher level function of fashion, because fashion really is a very creative expression in the arts.
Absolutely.
And how we dress ourselves really indicates a lot about what we believe and our outlook on life, and fashion is a very powerful art form and tool for that as a design mechanism. So we started to move it away from just having very entry-level beginner people who were designing a one-up costume for that event to actually professional career designers who could then showcase their craft and their art form.
And where did these designers come from? I mean, did you ship them all up from New York, or do we actually really have designers of that quality here in upstate New York?
The majority of the designers that we worked with are actually from New York State. We have reached into western Massachusetts a little bit, and northern Connecticut. Mm-hmm. I will say this year, every single designer is actually from New York State, whether it be Schenectady, Saratoga, Copake, New York, Queens, New York. So we do have a little representation from the city, mm-hmm. but a lot of it is actually right up here. Oh, Troy, New York also.
But that's so wonderful, because it really, I would think, if it works, demonstrates that you don't have to go to New York City to go high fashion, or to have fashion, or to see fashion as art, that we really have the ability to have fashion as art right here in the Capital Region.
Very much. I mean, that's really one of the core missions of what we're trying to do on the show production side, is to show people that we have that caliber here in our region, and give people an opportunity to experience that and actually support these designers and artists in what they do for a living.
Mm-hmm. So then it really is fashion as art. Is that what you're saying?
Very much. I mean, if you want to see one of the most popular shows, or you can't now, that was going on at the Met, it was the Alexander McQueen Savage Beauty Show. Fashion as art is a huge draw. The Metropolitan actually builds a significant energy behind fashion installations as art.
Really?
And so we kind of took a page out of the chapter of what they were doing and decided to write our version for our region. And so we've been supporting that this year with some fashion installations and galleries that involve fabric arts that are very deeply researched and studied. One particular designer I'm working with, Vilma Mare out of Kopek, New York, a Lithuanian-born designer, has put together an entire exhibition that uses fashion as a vehicle, not only as art, but also as a teaching tool to help people understand ancient cultures and seen through the lens of Baltic mythology. So it's really intense. It's very, very deep level stuff.
How wonderfully remarkable. Well, when did you start all of this? How long has this been going on before maybe some of us even knew that it was here? When did it arrive? And what's its life been like?
This is the 6th annual show. Okay. So it started, as I indicated, it originated at Proctors. It was there for the first few years. Last year, for the first time, we moved the main show out of Proctors into Saratoga at Universal Preservation Hall, which is an amazing up-and-coming arts institution that's also a historic preservation project. This year we'll be in Saratoga again. Next year we're looking at possibly doing something in Albany County. We like to move it around because we're trying to be a regional entity.
Okay.
We have done a couple of other shows. We did a beautiful mansion show with the Vanguard Albany Symphony Orchestra Group, which you might recollect very well.
Yes, you did. Yes, well, Corey and I actually met a couple of years ago at the Vanguard Show House, and I can tell you that when he did his preview for Electric City Couture, it was the hit of the evening. It was amazing for everybody that was there. The homeowner was thrilled. We got letters back saying how wonderful to have something so alive happen in the house and how it brought the house to life. So I must admit that I'm quite keen on Electric City Couture. I'm just trying to bring you all along with me now. So can you continue
One of the
there?
things I really liked about that particular show is, again, it involved other creative design forms, which are very art-oriented. Interior design, which is a whole craft and skill of its own. Artisan clothing design. We had the wonderful Petya Kazarova from the Albany Symphony performing that night for the makeshift runway that wandered and meandered through the house. The show is actually based off a famous John Galliano show that happened in, I believe, Paris many years ago. So again, it was very informed in combining multiple art forms. That's really something that I'm exceedingly interested in the production work that I do.
And that's one of the things that I think helps me to redefine what we talk about when we talk about art and rediscover what art really is. We did an interview recently with Albany Pro Musica, and they also are involving other art forms in their chorus presentations, and I feel like I'm seeing more of that, and I think it's so wonderful that that we have fashion now that can enter into music and design, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I feel like in our region there's this really wonderful explosion, if you will, of not just the arts, but unique ways of combining different institutions and alliances and different art forms in conjunction with one another to create major episodes that bring awareness to what we're doing in this particular area. And I know with Electric City Couture, we work very hard to do that. As I mentioned, we're pairing up with Universal Preservation Hall, which Philip Morris calls Saratoga's living room.
It's beautiful.
And Proctors is part of the show, of course, still, because they have interest in Electric City since we were birthed there, and they have interest in Universal Preservation Hall. So, I mean, we just keep finding ways to add on different organizational alliances that are very involved with the arts to create larger artistic episodes. I just happen to do that with the core of fashion.
And the impact is amazing.
Thank you.
Back to your history, you are now 2 seasons at the Preservation Hall.
Yes.
And looking for a venue or looking to perhaps move your venue into the Albany area. next year, which would be amazing for us too, although Saratoga we can get to very handily. How did you find your designers to begin with, and how do you find your models? Where do they all come from?
Well, the first few years we did open calls for designers, and that was successful, and we got a lot of very creative designers that maybe didn't do it for a living, but would do it as one-ups for the show, and it created some really interesting show moments. But really, I felt increasingly that I wanted to showcase a higher level function of what kind of creative design we have in our region, and had a couple of designers that I personally knew that I was able to bring in. Kim Vano from Colonie Studio out of Saratoga, who was doing costume design for Ellen Sinopoli Dance Company, of which I'm very involved with. So I asked her if she would come because she was releasing a ready-to-wear line, and it ended up being very successful. She got bought up by a boutique that was local, Circle's Boutique.
Oh, nice,
and,
very nice.
She started selling out of there, and it started to create a legacy for the show that we could actually get those designers out there in a way where people could participate with the designer in wearing their clothes, which is really if you're a
wonderful.
painter, you want people to have your paintings on the walls.
Exactly.
If you're a designer, you want people to wear your clothes. So
They're your canvas, in a sense.
pretty much. I mean, and it's a very intimate canvas, wearing something on your body. Now, a lot of what I'm doing is designers will approach me, or I'll hear about a designer that is regionally based that I'm really excited about, and I will ask them if they will participate in the show. Because again, we're trying to build a higher and higher level to this and really drive the artistic side. For example, Marika Charles in our show this year out of Schenectady, as I recollect, and you'll have to check me on this, but I'm pretty sure she mentioned to me that she has some design work in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in their permanent collection. So there's a strong tie between art and fashion.
Yes, there is. So the designers that come on board and work with you then can really, I'm sure they aspire to, and it sounds like they have a right to hope for some real notice by people that are going to be able to help further their careers.
Absolutely. There's not a lot of runway shows of this magnitude that, in fact, I don't know of any of this magnitude that are in our region on a regular basis. It's a multi-designer juried show that's all original design. In fact, the process behind the show is even more intense than that. A lot of shows in our region, or even down in New York City sometimes, will have maybe 10 models and they go back and do changes. Our show actually incorporates upwards of 55 to 60 models.
Oh my
because
goodness.
We create a specific brand look with our entire team of hair and makeup specialists who are creative artists also, and the fashion designer and the model, so that each brand that goes on the runway, or each artist's work, the designer, that goes on the runway is very much a pure expression of what their vision is. So it's like chapters in a book.
I noticed that at the Vanguard show preview that you did, but then I also noticed it. Your web page is wonderful. Your informational page is wonderful, and you have ticked all the boxes in terms of where you're advertising. It's wonderful to look through Facebook and everything and see all the things that you're doing. But I did notice that each designer has sort of their own personal models, and they do all of their artwork is shown in a group and then and recognized. And I'm new to this field, so that was very interesting to see that you actually see the model in the designer in their entirety, along with their models.
I have a strong interest in the arts personally, and I'm very active in a number of organizations. So anytime that I do something, I try and bring more of an artistic edge to it that feels more legitimate. And one of the things art is really good at doing is telling stories or communicating thoughts or principles.
Yes.
It's a very powerful channel for that. And so what we've started to do, like when we're promoting our show even, is it starts to feel much more theatrical, the promotions that we're using, because we'll do a group shot of, let's say, the 5 5 designers, there might be 8 models, but within that shot, as you indicated, you can see there's a different story going on for each of them, but there's an overarching theme that's happening too.
Yes.
So like this year, our theme is the makers movement in America, the people who make the things. You know, we live at a time in our existence where a lot of times people don't understand where things come from or the hand of the maker. And so we are trying to pull the curtain down and show people that this is how the donuts get made.
Yes.
This is how the clothing gets made. These are the people, these are the craftspeople that are doing it right here in front of you. You have a direct connection, and I think that's really exciting to our designers too.
It is. It's a strong, good connection that you see. You don't do this alone. None of us could. So I know there are partnerships that have occurred along the ways, and you've mentioned your partnership with Proctors, which continues to be a part of this show.
Absolutely, absolutely. They're kind of in the background, always there. So like this year, I wanted to do a much more elaborate stage set, and I asked Philip, you know, if he could give me some recommendation on how I could do that. Philip Morris from Proctors, and he was kind enough to make available his stage team for me to be able to consult with, to be able to figure out how I could construct this rigging to create this set. I'm very much inspired by shows that I've seen at Proctors and the stage sets that they're doing there for those performances, and want to try and bring some of that level of theatrical communication to the show. So having the ability to access people that are experienced in putting Broadway shows together on stage is just a tremendous value. It's a tremendous value to us, yes. We're very appreciative.
And the pictures that I've seen, I have not been to Preservation Hall, but the pictures that you show on your website, it's just an amazingly lovely, interesting building.
It's I very much see historic architecture as art. I think the hand of the maker again is in that, and it's shockingly beautiful. And these spaces are unrepeatable pieces of art that will never happen again in history if they're not saved. So we have a deep passion to assist in that.
Do you know when the Preservation Hall actually dates from?
Thank you. I was just going to do that and lost my thought. 1871 is when it was built. I can't remember the name of the architect. I know he's important for this particular type of architecture. It's I think it's called High Bay Victorian Gothic. And it's my understanding the main space in the chapel area is about 40 feet high. So it is, I believe, one of a very rare or short list of 2 or 3 churches of this particular type of architecture that have been preserved at this level.
Oh my goodness.
In the country, is what I believe. You could verify that by going to their website.
But it was originally a church, built as a church.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Recently, the last congregation to be there was, I believe, a Baptist congregation, African-American congregation in the middle of Saratoga that most people didn't even realize. So last year we actually built a show theme around honoring the Reverend Dr. Minnie Burns, who was the pastor there.
Yes, wonderful.
And who just passed away shortly after the show. So I was very excited that we were able to bring honor to that space and to her by telling people about a story in downtown Saratoga that they might not have been familiar with.
That's wonderful, and that's another thing that the arts can do is celebrate all of those aspects of life that bring people together and encourage their spirit. I love that you have history going along with fashion. It's amazing. Not to mention the music, which I just wanted you to spend a little time telling us about. I mean, I know that these models are going to be incredibly gorgeous in all of these fashions, having just seen one show, and very interesting, very challenging, very artistic in the design fashion, and they will be completely beautified by the makers of beauty in our area. But they won't walk out in utter silence. They will be walking out with what?
music is a really important part of what we do. It creates an individualized energy for each particular designer team or artist team, you could say. So I have a music director, and his name is Nathan Frank. He goes by the name Nate DeGreat DJ.
Nate DeGreat.
He's a regional DJ that's really spectacular. But we started just creating pieces of music that people would expect, off popular music and running it down the runway. But we've really started to, again, take a more theatrical approach to the music. So this year, the music is going to be a lot more rootsy, maybe less predictable. And every year we try and do a special musical moment. And this year, I am just thrilled beyond belief that we were able to pull this off. But we were able to get for our guest designer, Marika Charles, we were able to get Chuck Lamb of the Brubeck Brothers Quartet, who's touring around the world. He just played with the Singapore Symphony like 2 months ago, to write a piece specifically for our show for that designer, artist interpreting artist.
Oh my goodness.
And he wrote the piece, and he's been rehearsing it with Petia Kazarova from the Albany Symphony, again, who's a good friend of our show.
Those
and
partnerships.
So you have accomplished world-class classical musician, an accomplished world-class jazz pianist, and they're going to be recording this piece at the Albany Barn in Albany, which is another wonderful arts institution in our region. Again, another project partner that we can pull together to create wonderful episodes. Then the DJ is going to take that, break it up into component parts, and then it will be performed with the DJ and Petia live behind the runway show.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a lot of technical challenges going on in that particular scenario that I just described, but I can tell you the piece is amazing. I was bursting into tears when I first heard them starting to play it, and it's just got this beautiful wistfulness to it, and then a moment of happy energy, and it's everything you would expect when you're working with world-class musicians.
Yeah. How completely wonderful. It's sort of mind-boggling to think of all of the arts that you've brought together in this, classical music, wonderful, I can't say his name that you just told me, Chuck Lamb, right? Chuck Lamb's contribution is amazing, and then beyond that to have the visual arts so beautifully, and the art of history all around us. It has to be just amazing to think that this is going to be happening quite soon.
Yeah, it is, and the beauty of it that really gets me excited and gets me able to get out of bed to focus on this for so many years when it was really hard to put all this together with no resources is really those moments to be able to create the intersection of these different art forms to create an expression that's actually greater than the individual parts, that spins off this beautiful awareness and benefit to each of the individual parts.
Exactly.
So I know we're very fortunate that we've created this energy where people at that level want to work with us because they kind of, as creative people, they see where we're going with this and what we're trying to accomplish and all the benefits that are going back to the different organizations, institutions, and individuals. So it's super gratifying for me to be kind of at the hub of that, seeing just all those things happen.
Spin out around you.
Even though I'm spinning right now because the show is 2.5 weeks away, and God, I'm spinning.
That's right. And I think I forgot to mention that the designers are the ones that started all of this. So it's their art, their creative art design that really feeds everything else in that wheel.
Totally.
You have your opening on April 25th, 8 p.m. Are there still tickets available? How do people access you?
There are a few tickets left. It's actually by going to, the easiest way would be to go to the show website, which is electriccitycouture.com.
And that will be at the end of the at the end of our interview.
Yes, so if you go there, you can, there's a link directly there, or you can go to the universalpreservationhall.org site, which is the venue. But I think the easiest one would be to go to electricitycouture.com, because then you'll get to see all the designers in this year's show, all the different stories. You'll see some images from different things that we've done in the past,
And I want to just tell people that the seats, the tickets are very reasonable at $15. I think there are more expensive seats that are probably sold by now. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically the way we structure it, we kind of, because it's a major fundraiser for Universal Preservation Hall, we structure it as a gala in a way, so that it's not a typical gala in that it's a performance show. But there is an honorary committee where people can participate at a higher level to get those front row, second row seats, and this mezzanine seat area, which is going to be stunning. But that really allows people to enjoy the experience at a higher level, but also give back in a more meaningful way to Universal Preservation Hall.
Perfect. The rest of the seats, which are also very good seats, are only $15, which is incredibly reasonable for those of us who have big parties of people we'd like to have come with us.
Well, that's really by design. I mean, one of the missions that we have is to raise awareness for the fashion-related arts and functions, and so we try and keep the general ticket price as low as possible, so that if this aspiring fashion young lady who wants to be a fashion designer, or a young man wants to come with their parent, they can still experience a world-class runway show and be able to afford it. It's really important to us that we keep it democratic.
I think it's
like
amazing,
that.
and it's completely wonderful, because we have so much to learn about arts and fashion, and that marriage that you're creating with so many arts entities coming together. So I'm very glad that the general public's going to be able to get in there and see it. Corey, I've been given the 5-minute warning, but I did want to get a quick question in. Are there any special features this year? Since you seem to add something every year, is there anything special that you've added this year to this performance?
Actually, something we're very excited about. We started a trial run last year, and we're expanding it this year, and that is a buy it off the runway option.
Really?
So we're building a full boutique in the venue downstairs, right off the runway. People can go down, experience meeting these artisan clothing designers, and participate in being able to wear some of that art. So, that will be not only available after the runway show that night, but for general public who weren't able to attend the show, the next day at Universal Preservation Hall from 11 until 3. So we'll have that shop there. People can come, meet the designers directly, meet who's making these wonderful clothing.
Will they actually be able to purchase things that have been worn on them? Really?
In some instances, maybe even something that was worn the night before on the runway. So we're really excited about that. It gives a chance for the creative people to be able to get compensated for their hard labor, and I think that's an important thing that we need to explore in the arts, that many smart people are starting to pay a lot more attention to.
Well, I think it's always exciting for an audience member to be able to actually meet an artist. And so this is going to be a wonderful opportunity to shake hands, to get to know this artist, and to learn where to look for their creations, or how to order one of their creations for a very special time, or it'll be wonderful. A pop-up shop. Okay.
Yes, a pop-up shop.
And that's on Sunday.
That will be after the show on the runway show on Saturday night.
Perfect.
And then Sunday at Universal Preservation Hall from 11 until 3.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. It's been a wonderful, wonderful program, and I'm honored to have had you. I look forward to being in one of those seats, along with 3 of my very best friends. And I hope that all of you out in the listening audience will join me, and we can applaud and scream and stomp and be generally very, very happy and excited about Electric City Couture and all of the arts that they bring to the Capital Region. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you, Barbara.